Out of the blue, Rawan asked his sister-in-law, Rashmi, for something she never saw coming. Shocked and taken aback, she immediately refused. It was an outrageous request, something she'd never expected from her husband's nephew. But Rawan wasn't one to give up easily. He persuaded her, even taking her out for drinks, and after a few rounds, things took an unexpected turn. In the haze of the moment, Rashmi gave in to Rawan's advances. Hello, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into another chilling real-life story, one that reminds us of the shocking events that can happen in this world. This time, the story takes us to the city of Kandy, nestled in the central province of Sri Lanka. Located about 115 kilometers northeast of Colombo, the nation's capital, Kandy is a city rich in culture and history, but this tale is anything but beautiful. It's about an elderly woman who found herself sentenced to spend the rest of her life in prison. Why? Because she couldn't resist the temptations of a young man. What led to this tragic turn of events? What really happened? Let's unravel the story together. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share the story with your friends. It helps us keep bringing you amazing content. So here's how the story goes. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful woman named Rashmi, born in 1973. In her younger days, she worked as a golf caddy at the prestigious Victoria Golf and Country Resort. Life seemed promising, but tragedy struck early. Her husband, whom she had married but hadn't yet had children with, passed away in an accident. Fortunately, he had been a civil servant, so Rashmi continued to receive his pension. However, Rashmi wasn't the type to sit back and rely on that pension forever. Determined to make her own way, she opened a salon and massage business, leveraging her wide network of wealthy acquaintances from her golf caddy days. Many of her clients were businessmen or even political figures. Over time, some of the men who visited for massages began making requests for extras. But Rashmi had her principles. She refused to do anything she considered inappropriate, especially not for money. She made it clear that if she were to give herself to a man, it would only be someone serious about her, someone who intended to marry her. In January 2019, Rashmi crossed paths with Mahinda, a 68-year-old businessman and political party member. Mahinda owned several rental properties and was introduced to Rashmi while attending a political event in Kandy. He started visiting her regularly for massages, and their conversations flowed easily. They hit it off, and Mahinda, clearly smitten, was generous with his money, often giving Rashmi much more than she charged. His kindness and attention warmed her heart, and Rashmi began to see him as someone she could be serious about. But there was a catch. Mahinda was already married, with a wife and children back in Negombo. According to him, though, his marriage had long since lost its spark. His wife was more focused on their grandchildren than on him, leaving Mahinda feeling lonely and unappreciated. He confided in Rashmi about his struggles and told her he wanted to marry her. However, there was another obstacle. Mahinda's political party had strict rules forbidding divorce for its members. So, he proposed an alternative. He and Rashmi could have a Siri marriage, a private, informal marriage instead. He promised to take care of her and provide for all her needs. After months of consideration, Rashmi agreed. In June 2019, they held a Siri marriage ceremony with Mahinda's younger brother, Rawan, serving as a family witness. Mahinda's wife and children had no idea what was going on. Following the marriage, Rashmi's modest home was transformed. Mahinda had it renovated into something much bigger and more comfortable. He also ensured she received a steady flow of money each month. True to his word, Mahinda visited her 4 to 8 times a month, finding comfort and affection in her company. As for Rashmi, she didn't care what her neighbors thought. Despite the whispers and disapproval, she focused on her thriving salon business and the financial stability Mahinda brought into her life. To her, the opinions of others didn't matter. She had everything she needed. Since Mr. Mahinda was rarely in Kandy, he decided to entrust his nephew, Rawan, with an important task, keeping an eye on his young wife, Rashmi. Rawan had just graduated from college and hadn't found a job yet, so he was more than happy to take on the role. Mahinda's reasoning was simple. Rashmi was still stunningly beautiful, even though she wasn't young anymore, and he wanted to make sure she stayed safe from any wandering admirers. To sweeten the deal, Mahinda paid Rawan a monthly salary and arranged for him to rent a boarding room in Kandy. At first, Rashmi felt a bit uncomfortable with the idea of being watched so closely. She considered herself loyal and had no plans of messing around, especially since Mahinda made sure her financial needs were met. But if having a guard was part of the arrangement, she figured she could live with it. After all, she had nothing to hide. Initially, Rawan asked his uncle for a motorcycle to get around, but Mahinda insisted he take one of the unused cars from his home in Negombo instead. Rawan quickly became a familiar face around Kandy, using the car to go anywhere he pleased, including frequent visits to Rashmi's salon and massage parlor. As time went on, Rawan started spending more and more time at Rashmi's place. He got free meals, enjoyed the cool atmosphere, and liked hanging out with the beautiful women who worked there. Often, he stayed late into the night before finally heading back to his boarding room. It didn't take long before Rawan started developing feelings for Rashmi. Her soft demeanor, captivating fragrance, and graceful beauty left him mesmerized. Things escalated when Rawan began taking Rashmi out in the car, driving her to malls and cafes. By October 2019, his feelings had grown into an obsession. One day, after getting drunk, Rawan crossed a line. He demanded something more from Rashmi, something she never expected. Shocked and horrified, Rashmi flat out refused. She couldn't believe her husband's nephew would ask such a thing. But Rawan wasn't giving up. He continued his advances, taking her out for drinks and trying to wear her down. Eventually, Rawan got what he wanted. That night, Rashmi gave in, and it didn't stop at once. It happened 3 times. Rawan was ecstatic, thrilled beyond words. But their moment of indulgence came at a cost. On the way back to Rashmi's house, Rawan, exhausted and careless, lost focus while driving. Their car crashed before they could make it home. Both of them were rushed to the hospital with serious injuries. Rawan recovered quickly and was sent back to Negombo by his uncle to recover in peace. Rashmi, however, wasn't as lucky. The accident left her with severe injuries, including a badly damaged left leg that would impact her for the rest of her life. Despite the condition of her injured leg, Rashmi didn't let it break her spirit. She continued running her salon and massage parlor with the help of an employee. At first, she managed with a cane, but over time, the strain became too much. Eventually, she asked her husband, Mr. Mahinda, to buy her a wheelchair. He continued to visit her regularly, and the monthly allowance arrived like clockwork. Rashmi still did her best to meet his needs, though not as skillfully as before. Things began to change in April 2020 when the pandemic hit. Rashmi's health took a turn for the worse. Her injured leg deteriorated, and soon her right leg became difficult to move as well. Hospitals were overwhelmed with pandemic patients, and fearing infection, Rashmi paused her physiotherapy sessions. It wasn't until December 2020, when her health had slightly improved, that she resumed therapy. Because getting around had become a challenge, Mahinda hired a driver to help Rashmi. By March 2021, a 34-year-old man named Dinesh arrived in Kandy as her personal driver and assistant. Dinesh rented a small house near Rashmi's salon, making it easier to assist her with errands and therapy sessions. Now, a little backstory on Dinesh. He was married with a 2-year-old child. In his earlier years, he worked as a porter, hauling building materials for local shops. After getting married, he took a job as a security guard, but like many others, he lost his position during the pandemic. Even after the situation improved, finding work was tough due to his lack of formal education. One day, a relative tipped him off that Mahinda was looking for a private driver. Dinesh didn't hesitate. He applied and got the job. Dinesh's new role kept him away from his family in Gampala, as he could only visit his wife and child twice a month. His duties included driving Rashmi to her therapy sessions, running errands, and assisting with her daily activities. However, Rashmi's condition showed little improvement, and her health challenges began to affect her personal life. Mahinda, once an attentive husband, started to complain. Rashmi's performance, in their private moments, wasn't what it used to be. His visits dwindled from 8 times a month to just once. The shopping allowance he provided was cut back, though he continued paying Dinesh's salary as agreed. Tensions grew as Mahinda's dissatisfaction deepened. He even threatened Rashmi, warning that if things didn't change, he might look for someone else to fill the void in his life. By June 2021, Mr. Mahinda still hadn't shown up, and Rashmi started opening up about her worries to her driver, Dinesh. She confided in him, expressing her fear that one day she might be abandoned entirely. Dinesh, ever the calming presence, tried to reassure her, saying that with time and treatment, she would regain her health and vitality. Rashmi couldn't hold back her tears, and as Dinesh tried to comfort her with a firm embrace, she felt a sense of solace in his arms. The young man's strong and toned physique from his porter days made her feel oddly secure, and over time, something else began to stir in Rashmi. She found herself secretly admiring him, stealing glances at his face and even fantasizing about him. Then came one night in early July 2021. After returning home from therapy, Dinesh carried Rashmi to her room as usual. But this time, she clung to him tightly, crying and lamenting how long her recovery was taking. The house was silent. The salon and massage staff didn't live on the property, leaving just the two of them. Dinesh once again tried to lift her spirits, reassuring her not to give up hope. But Rashmi's mind wandered into dangerous territory. Consumed by her frustrations and strange thoughts, she made a bold move, inviting Dinesh to cross a line. She wanted to test herself, to prove to her absent husband that her game wasn't diminished as he'd claimed. Dinesh, hesitant but filled with pity for her, eventually gave in. What started as one forbidden act spiraled into 3 over the following days, all at Rashmi's insistence. But by mid-July 2021, Dinesh had vanished. He stopped answering calls, and when Rashmi went to check on his rental house, it was empty. His car was gone, and so was he. Frantic, Rashmi called her husband to ask if he'd heard from Dinesh. That's when Mahinda exploded in anger. He accused her of seducing the driver and told her everything Dinesh had confessed before quitting. Mahinda declared he was done and threatened to divorce her immediately. Rashmi, who was sick, no longer in her prime, and now accused of lusting after young men, was furious. She screamed in denial, insisting it was Dinesh who had seduced her first. The very next day, in late July 2021, Mahinda came to visit Rashmi to discuss their separation. He made it clear he believed Dinesh's version of events and admitted he'd been considering divorce for a while, given how things had deteriorated between them. Rashmi, enraged, agreed to the separation, but only if Mahinda continued to send her monthly allowance. She insisted that she deserved financial support no matter what. Mahinda reluctantly agreed, but when the amount Rashmi demanded was too high, a heated argument broke out. In a fit of fury, Rashmi stormed into the kitchen, grabbed a fruit cutter, and attacked Mahinda from behind while he was sipping coffee. Chaos erupted as salon and massage staff rushed to intervene. Mahinda was critically injured but managed to survive after being rushed to the hospital. Rashmi, however, wasn't as lucky. She was promptly arrested by the police for the violent assault. To cut a long story short, the whole situation turned into a massive shock for Mr. Mahinda's first wife, Lakshmi. She came to Kandy and learned about her husband's secret marriage to Rashmi. Naturally, things got heated. Lakshmi and Rashmi had an intense altercation, and Lakshmi even confronted Mahinda, furious at the betrayal. The police eventually stepped in to calm everyone down. Mahinda tried to apologize, claiming he was already in the process of divorcing Rashmi. It was during this chaos that Mahinda finally learned the truth about Rashmi's accident. Apparently, it all stemmed from her inappropriate interactions with his nephew, Rawan. However, there wasn't enough evidence for Rashmi to press charges against him. In court, Rashmi's lawyer argued that she had been emotionally overwhelmed at the time of the incident. She was facing a divorce from her paralyzed husband, and her allowance had been drastically reduced, leaving her unable to cover her medical treatments and daily expenses. The lawyer blamed Rawan for starting the chain of events, claiming that if he hadn't been sent to spy on Rashmi, none of this would have happened. Things took another twist when Dinesh, Rashmi's former driver, testified in court. He painted Rashmi in a bad light, claiming that she had pressured him into inappropriate activities. Rashmi was furious. She felt betrayed. In private, Dinesh had been more than willing to participate, and once they started, it wasn't just a one-time thing. It happened multiple times. But now he was throwing her under the bus. Dinesh, however, had his own regrets. While he admitted to enjoying the situation at first, especially since he was only allowed to see his own wife twice a month, things changed when Rashmi started making daily demands. The guilt began to eat at him, and he eventually fled, confessing everything to both his wife and Mr. Mahinda. After a lengthy trial, the Kandy City High Court reached its verdict. Rashmi was found guilty of assault as well as misconduct involving Rowan and Dinesh. She was sentenced to a maximum of 10 years in prison, with provisions to continue her medical therapy while incarcerated. By March 2022, Rashmi and Mahinda were officially divorced. As for Rowan and Dinesh, they walked away without any charges. Many speculated that Mahinda's influence in the area helped shield them from legal trouble, leaving Rashmi to bear the full weight of the consequences. What lessons can we learn from this story?